Welcome to Fast Effect Double Speed Magic the Gathering from ELD's Time Vault game. We have Steve on 8 cast versus Gemin on lands. Very powerful deck that can really grind things out or just sometimes win on turn 2. Lands is a really unique deck within the format. You don't see as much of it in paper because of the cost of Tabernacle. Steve, on the other hand, an 8 cast list running literally no reserve list cards. I'll be doing a series on some Force of Will decks that are more budget options, not relying on the revised dual lands that are so common. Many of the fun decks that we have available to us, but there are plenty of options that don't rely on a ton of revised duels, some none at all. Urza Saga is taken out by Wasteland, and that can be a very important card in this matchup. One of the things about Urza's Saga is it's really not symmetrical. A lot of the time, cards kind of cancel each other out. I have a counterspell and you have a counterspell. They can kind of just negate each other, and almost like neither of us had either. But Urza's Saga, you can definitely be the better Saga deck. An 8 cast, very likely to have the larger constructs on their side of the board. However, lands has a lot more use of the Urza Saga, so it becomes a really interesting game where lands may be able to make more constructs. Constructs aren't necessarily as big. Eventually, they will outpace it. Constructs make each other large as well, so kind of a time frame situation. Lands, given enough time, will be able to do absolutely ridiculous things. 8 cast is going to need to find a way to win before that happens. Of course, the 2020 Merit Lage can be part of the mix. Got a Thespian stage on board, and this can create a really interesting situation. Yeah, Gemin actually picking up on this line. So he's made his Thespian stage into an Urza Saga, and it's got a counter on it. Now, remember, when the stage happens for the Saga, it grants the land that ability. It's not because it's that name or anything like that. So the Thespian stage, which is a copy of Urza's Saga, has now gained the ability to tap for a colorless mana. Next turn, after the draw step, it'll gain the ability to pay 2 and tap to create a construct. Now, if you change it from being a Thespian stage at that point into some other non-Saga card, it still has that ability. So it'll stop picking up. You'll be able to just have a land that each turn you can pay 2, tap it, and make a construct. So that can be really difficult to work your way out of, especially without Wasteland. Of course, Life from Alone, get that back anyways. Is going exactly the opposite of what Steve would want. No board presence, no pressure. Just really not great. There's also a expedition map on board, which can grab a Dark Depths whenever Gemin actually feels like that's the best line. For now, it looks like he's just going after Steve's mana base. Really restrict that. 8 cast can spit out a bunch of potential blockers. Goes up in mills, and he can kind of be a Phyrexian Arena effect here, drawing an extra card each turn, bringing back a bauble. See when this map actually gets sacrificed. Interesting. Leaving Rashad and Port both untapped. Imagine that's because he plans to get hands here. There we go. Tabernacle and Yavimaya. Don't necessarily love that line. Doesn't matter a ton. Worth noting that the Thespian stages would have been better untapped rather than the Tabernacle and Yavimaya for options. This one is on double speed. Looks like we could be here for a bit. There's a Dark Depths for Gemin, but there's an Aether Spellbomb on the other side, presumably stopped by Pithing Needle. And now Retrofitter Foundry, which can create tons and tons of blockers, potentially. See if he can push through a 2020. Lotus Petal. Once those thought monitors start showing up, it can be a lot to ask to actually get through them with the Merit Lage. Steve, considering his options, it's not a good situation. Upkeep. Tabernacle tapping to pay for the construct. Retrofitter Foundry, still a little bit of a reader. A lot of text on there. Unless you've actually piloted the deck, pretty easy to miss some of the potential interactions. 3 damage coming across. And it looks like Gemin's going to be making a 2020 during the end step, as well as porting both lands. Now the Tabernacle to be paid first. May not actually need to port anything. Looks like there's only 2 lands on board, so letting a construct go, paying for Emery. And Endurance meets a Force of Will pitching Sigh. Tabernacle doing all sorts of work here. Sigh normally would be able to create just a ton of 1/1s, block that Merit Lage all day long. However, Tabernacle reining things in. He's got everything going for him. Steve really just been struggling the whole game just to have any type of footing. Thought Monitor. Potential blocker. And, Gemin's not going to give up the constructs. Just keep making some constructs. He's fine with that. Instead of making the 2020 and losing 2 lands. Tend to just in with the constructs. Thought Monitor gonna step in front. Likely target for recursion as well. 4 damage, gonna make another body to push through extra damage. Upkeep, paying the 1 for Emery, and now porting down the other land. Otawara played. That is a card that could potentially save you some of these situations where a lands player gets overzealous and moves all in for a 2020. Otawara is actually quite good in 8 cast, but Gemin just not having any of that. He's just going wide with the constructs despite having a Tabernacle out. And going to bring back a Thought Monitor, jam it. Cast. Find some more thought monitors? No? Alright, that's a wrap. So these constructs take it down. A kind of long battle. Never really in it. That was kind of lands taking an advantage and never letting go, just continually smothering and just keeping that pressure on, porting lands, and eventually having as many constructs as is necessary. Pretty long first game for being so one-sided. Tabernacle in this opener. That does not look like a keepable hand from here. Unless some of those are art cards I'm not familiar with. Life from the Loam. Oh, there's a Mox Diamond too. Guess we'll see the contents of the hand as this plays out. Oh, another Mox Diamond. Walk into Force of Will here. There's his Saga spell. Life from the Loam for the one land. Very interesting. I would have expected the other Mox Diamond to come out. Dredge gets... Wow. Grove of the Burn Willows and Punishing Fire. Same mill. Diamond comes out. Back a couple of lands. Let me know in the comments if you can think of argument that earlier. Pyroblast clears eye. Gas usually has Chalice of the Void at 1. There's plenty of 1-drops in this lands deck. Mostly 1-drops here. Explorations. I mean, it's also good versus Chalice. Versus Life from Loam, I should say. Chalice is good versus Life from Loam. Chalice is one of the ways to actually shut down the recursion on that card. As well as the recursion on Punishing Fire. Considering if he wants to make a guy or not, he's just going to float the mana. And Urza Saga, I think just an incredible printing. In general, just tons of decks utilizing it. Makes great use of that tutor at the end of it. Other decks more about making those constructs. Lance has a variety of options. Expedition map. Commonly just used to pull everything together. Or to find a utility land. As Kappa Cannoneer on the other side can be a little difficult to deal with. Ward 4 is quite a lot. So Mazavith not nearly as efficient versus the Turtle. It is versus the rest of the format. Ward's kind of interesting. I feel like they made it because the idea was people don't like Shroud and Hexproof because they can't interact with it. And I feel like it's actually just worse because you can attempt to interact with Kappa Cannoneer and just fail. Like, you can just throw away Swords to Plowshares and forget that it has Ward. It's a legal play. They just point out that it's countered unless you pay 4. You don't have the 4 mana for it, so that's pretty brutal. Tabernacle does come down, and Gemin's willing to take some hits here. Steve even need to spend some mana during the upkeep to keep his creatures around. Lets the token go. Must have some meaningful plays in hand. You could sacrifice a token to Retrofitter Foundry. Trigger happens at the beginning of the upkeep, so that is a way that you could potentially go from Servo to Thopter to Construct, upgrading along the way without having to pay the 1. Tap Cannoneer. Gets a counter, turn sideways. Can't be blocked this turn. Very relevant text. We play the games on double speed. Even with the play, even with the faster speed, very thoughtful play. Lasso, tapping for Pithing Needle, stopping Retrofitter Foundry. You get there. Urza's Saga going away. Probably going to grab Armadillo Cloak, Shadow Spear. And it is. Open up the turtle. Synod also helping the cause. Pithing Needle. Guys, big. Gemin's going to have 1 turn. Gain a bunch of life here, too. Getting outside of range of the one-shot Merit Lage. Very welcome in this matchup. Of course, Punishing Fire can soak up that last 1 or 2 crucial points of life, but if you can get into the mid-20s, it's entire extra swing that's necessary with Merit Lage. Life from Dredging back. We see a Mazavith. Is at this point actually useful. Getting it back. Oh no, Force of Vigor. Ooh. Force of Vigor taking out Kappa Cannoneer and the Urza Saga. Pitch, pay the extra 4 for Ward. There's Emery when you need it. Oh, another Kappa Cannoneer coming right back down, though. Oh, attempting to. Pyroblast stops it. And Emery, but Gemin's got the Punishing Fire to handle it. Wow, that was a lot of potential to go wrong, but I think he's just got this in lockdown here. Taking his land drop, Punishing Fire Emery. Take out the land. I mean, this is just going to be wasteland each turn till Steve's left with absolutely nothing to do. His mana base is just going to go bye-bye. Seed of the Synod and Otawara not be long for this world. Chalice at 1. That needs to be a Chalice at 2. Try and stop both Punishing Fire and Life from the Loam. Doesn't have the luxury of the mana. This is all just going to go away. Only small mercy is that there's only 1 land per turn coming down. There is no exploration. And Steve sees the writing on the wall and scoops it up. Yeah, that is, despite the lopsided life totals, 23-4, totally irrelevant. Steve's got no way back into that game as the recurring wastelands just totally locking Steve out despite a very good start.